The Oracle Network. Look deeper.
Welcome to Brew Crime. I'm Mike.
I'm Beck.
And I'm Nina.
All right, welcome back. We're in a new year now. 2020 is dead.
Yay!
Woo-hoo!
We did it!
All right.
Now we're on to 2022 point B. I said 2022. 2020 point B. Part 2.
Yeah, really. Where are we at? December what now? All right.
37th.
Yeah, 37th. So this episode, we are doing something that I can't pronounce.
Which is a lot of things, so I think you need to be a little bit more specific, Mike.
So Beck.
So this is actually a topic that I really wanted to do because I just find it really interesting. And it's not that my pronunciation is going to be perfect at all, but it is Folie Deux. And that translates as madness 2. It's a psychiatric syndrome in which symptoms of a delusional belief and sometimes even hallucinations are transmitted or shared between two individuals. So there's also folie à trois and quatre and continued, whatever,
Yeah.
But more common is just between two people. So that's what each of us has picked a case on that topic for today.
Perfect. You said it much better than I could.
Maybe. Actual French-speaking people are like, that's horrible, but okay, sure.
Tabernacle.
We're trying my best.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to get it started today. The story name that I have is Double Trouble, and it's twins in desperate need of each other and in desperate need of time apart.
Sounds about right.
I don't have a pairing, so let's just skip that part. Sorry, everyone. Fail. Yeah. So June and Jennifer Gibbons were born on April 11th, 1963 at a military hospital in Aden, Yemen. Their parents, Gloria and Aubrey Gibbons, had emigrated from Barbados to the United Kingdom in the early 1960s. Gloria was a housewife and Aubrey worked as a technician for the Royal Air Force. The couple also had a daughter, Greta, born in 1957, and a son, David, born in 1959. The family moved to Wales in 1974. The twins were inseparable and spoke a sped-up version of Bajan Creole that most people couldn't understand. So it was a version of their native language.
It's at super speed.
Yeah, their parents couldn't even understand what they were saying.
God.
Sorry, Creole?
Creole, yeah.
Where is that?
Well,
does that language originate from?
The Barbados. That's where they had moved. That's where their parents had moved.
I've only heard it in relation to like Creole chicken, and I was like, they're talking like chicken speak? Because I'm obviously uneducated to know that it's from Barbados. So not trying to be offensive, just very ignorant, apparently. It's like, they speak seasoning? That's fucking killer.
No.
I got the time for that. I get it.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different Creole, but it's like French. It's like different languages based on French.
Got it.
Yeah.
So not seasoning.
No.
No, but I'm sure it also is. Yeah, so the family was the only Black family in the community, and the children, especially the twins, were very ostracized. The school administrators decided to release the twins early each day to help them avoid being bullied.
Oh, jeez.
It's so stupid.
Mm.
Like, that's the best you can come up with? Not maybe punishing the bullies for picking on them? No? Okay. So because of this, the twins became even more withdrawn, and their language became even harder to understand. They eventually stopped speaking to anyone except for each other and their younger sister, Rose. They continued going to school, but refused to read or write. They'd just sit and wait for the day to be over and then go home again.
I know some people like that.
The school administrators didn't act on their complete withdrawal, but a medic, John Rees, that was visiting the school to administer vaccinations, took note of their odd behavior. He notified a child psychologist, and the twins began to see a therapist.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
There's someone who's looking out for them. Okay, these are good things, because often it just gets ignored, and then, things get worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, especially if the school has just been ignoring it for who knows how long, then they've just been getting deeper and deeper into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they first started in therapy, but because they weren't talking to that therapist, they got a different therapist and a different therapist and so on. But the girls refused to communicate in any way outside of the triad of like the twins and their younger sister.
Would they talk to each other in front of other people and just not acknowledge other people, or just like never talk, period, unless they're just the triads together or whatever?
Well, they would speak to each other even if other people were there, but because they're still speaking in that language that no one knows what they're saying.
Right.
Yeah, and then they would speak to their sister just regularly, but not to anyone else.
Jeez.
Yeah, so the next course of action that was attempted was to send the twins to separate boarding schools, just to like forcibly break them apart and hopefully break their isolation.
Which is probably a bad idea.
Really bad idea. So the result from that was that they both entered near catatonic states.
Jeez.
So just super fail.
Mm-hmm.
That theory went nowhere real quick. So they were eventually reunited, and this resulted in their mutual isolation being even deeper. So it just made things much worse. So they spent several years in their bedroom writing and acting out elaborate plays with dolls. The plays were like soap opera-esque, and they occasionally recorded them on audio tapes as a gift for Rose, their sister. In Christmas of 1979, they were gifted diaries from Rose, and this ignited their writing careers. They sent away for mail order creative writing course, and they each wrote a lot of stories and poems and even novels. The stories were typically set in Malibu, California, and involved young men and women exhibiting strange and frequently criminal behavior. They were teenagers.
Were they writing like real words, or just like in their made-up language?
No, they wrote like full books, like English.
Right.
It was only with each other that they spoke in this other language.
So bizarre.
Yeah. One of the stories that June had written was called Pepsi Cola Addict, and I actually found a photo of the cover of it. That's one of the photos that we'll have for your listeners.
That's right there is like proves there's something wrong. Pepsi Cola Addict. Jeez.
Oh dear. Snob. Pepsi Cola Addict was about a high school student who is seduced by a teacher and then sent to a reformatory where a homosexual guard propositioned him. So this may not seem that salacious to us now, but you have to consider that this was the early 80s.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's salacious enough that it's involved with a person of power at a school, but
yeah. Well, and they were still so young when they wrote it. It seems it's not exactly
No.
young adult fiction or something.
No.
Expected behavior.
Yeah. Jennifer's contribution to the interesting themes was a novel called The Pugilist, in which a physician, eager to save his child's life, kills the family dog for its healthy heart to give to his child.
Jesus.
So what happens is the dog's spirit then lives on in the child and eventually takes revenge on the father. So this is the kind of stuff they're writing.
John
Sounds
Wick.
like some Stephen King kind of shit.
That sounds like John Wick. Someone fucks with a dog and then they get killed.
Yeah. So they're obviously very creative, but it's questionable what they're writing about. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah.
So they pooled their money and they actually got Pepsi Cola Addict published by like a vanity press where you can just publish your own work, but you have to pay for it. It was the only one that they ever bothered getting published. So around that time, they turned 18 and began experimenting with drugs and alcohol. They had also not forgotten about the one kid that they'd gone to school with that wasn't absolutely horrible to them. To them, he was their knight in shining armor because he didn't treat them like shit. He was an American named Lance Kennedy, which is just the most American name.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lance.
Kennedy.
Yeah, exactly. Lance was the only kid that ever stuck up for them, and they adored him for it. They eventually found his family address, but it took them ages to actually build up the nerve to reach out to Lance. So long, in fact, that when they finally did, he'd already moved back to Philadelphia. So he wasn't even living there anymore. But his 3 younger brothers were. So there was Jerry, who was the oldest of the 3 that were still there. Then Wayne, who was closest to the twins' age, and Carl was the youngest. But these are fake names. They're just for to keep them anonymous. Yeah, because they never provided approval to be in this reporting. You know what I mean? Not my reporting. I don't ask for approval. I just go online. Anyway, in April 1981, the sisters took a taxi to the Kennedy house for the first time. So bad news, the house was empty. Good news, it was unlocked. So they went inside and broke a door and ogled the family photos, rummaged through the boys' clothes, and just explored the house while no one was there. So all this creepiness was hungry work, so they made peanut butter sandwiches. They tried to make a run for it when the father and stepmother that were still living there arrived home, but that didn't work out so well. When the homeowners couldn't get the girls to speak, to explain themselves, like, why the hell are you in my house and eating my peanut butter? They just took pity on them and sent them home. Didn't know who they were or why they were there, but
weird.
Got crying, I guess. So this was only the first of many visits that the girls would make to the Kennedy home. They eventually met all 3 brothers and began spending all of their money on cab rides to the Kennedy home.
Weird.
This wasn't just friendship, though. They found the brothers, who were American, very attractive. They likened them to Leonardo DiCaprio. The sisters would get dressed up and do their hair and makeup like film stars before each visit. For extra glamour, they sometimes had sunglasses, wigs, and chewing gum, because it was just what they'd seen as glamorous in American movies, right? But it's a 18-year-old version of that.
Yeah, exactly.
So the process of getting all dolled up took hours, and this was when they got into the drugs and drinking, when they were hanging out with these boys. They later said that they did it to relax enough to actually be able to talk to someone that wasn't just each other. Because they really wanted to talk to these boys, but they couldn't do it sober.
Yeah, well, I mean, after being so withdrawn for so long, it probably would be hard to talk to someone else.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what it's going to be like when we're allowed to socialize again after this. Everyone's going to have to relearn, like, how to make conversation.
And how to have like proper manners and etiquette of what to do with your mouth. Because the amount of time I spent yawning with my mask on, I usually wouldn't do. Because, I was taught you cover your hand with your mouth.
Yeah.
Totally.
Like, don't be rude and yawn when someone's talking to you. But with a mask, people can't tell you're an asshole. So it's going to be a really hard adjustment once we don't have to wear the mask anymore to be like, what do I do?
It's like, how long are hugs supposed to be again?
Well, I was never a big hugger. So, I mean, personally, that's not a big one for me. But for me, the bigger thing is just like, I can't just make faces because you'll actually see what I'm doing. Because I'll definitely have moments where I'd be like, fuck, and like under my breath say it because I'm wearing a mask. No one can see it.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely going to need a reminder on social etiquette.
Hopefully there'll be a grace period and everyone will just be cool about it while we all learn together.
I hope so. I'm excited for it, though. I'm finally done all my Invisalign stuff, which doesn't matter. No one can see it. So I'm excited to show off my investment, so to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And obviously, I'm also excited for, COVID to be over and everyone to be healthy again, but most importantly, to show off my teeth.
When this group got together, Wayne bought pot that he shared with them, but it was more typical for them to sniff glue or lighter fluid to get high. Yeah. So Wayne was happy to hang out with the sisters, drinking and smoking, but wasn't interested in them in the way that he had hoped. The youngest brother, Carl, however, was. In June of 1981, when Jennifer was 18 and Carl was only 14, they had sex in a church that was near the Kennedy home.
That's all right.
June, Jennifer, and Carl had gone to the church to get drunk, and when the two began having sex, June just stayed because she couldn't go anywhere without her sister.
Jeez.
So she just sat there and waited. The following day, June wrote in her diary, quote, "Something like magic is happening. I am seeing Jennifer for the first time like she is seeing me. I think she is slow, cold, has no respect, and talks too much, but she thinks I am the same. We are both holding each other back. There is a murderous gleam in her eye. Dear Lord, I am scared of her. She is not normal. She's having a nervous breakdown. Someone is driving her insane, and it is me." End quote.
Oh, jeez. That doesn't sound good.
Bizarre.
So intense, eh?
Mm-hmm. Just a little bit.
Less than 2 weeks later, June duplicated her sister's experience with Carl, but this time in the Kennedy barn. So, yeah, she had sex with the same boy just 2 weeks later.
Jeez.
It's not like these boys were kind to them at all. They would insult them or just completely ignore them. They were even violent with the twins at times.
Weird.
I mean, if they're so not used to having like other people interaction, like they might just not know better.
Yeah.
Not that excuses their behavior by any means, but
no. Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the girls didn't seem to care. They were finally living some sort of life outside of their bedroom, and at least that was something.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they felt about it. So after the summer, the Kennedy family all moved back to America. To June and Jennifer, it was 5 weeks of happiness, like a life, 5 weeks where they were actually living and not just existing in their bedroom. So all the energy that had been directed towards the Kennedys needed to go somewhere. The two started stealing, vandalizing, and in general, annoying all of their neighbors. On October 24th, 1981, the two started a large fire at a nearby tractor store.
Oh, shit.
On November... Yeah. a lot of fuel would be there, I would think. On November 8th, they smashed a window at Pembroke Technical College. A policeman patrolling the area caught them just as they were lighting another fire. They were arrested and charged. Their room was searched, and the diaries were found. This led to 16 joint counts of burglary, theft, and arson.
Jeez.
They were sent to Puckle Church Remand Center.
Puckle Church?
Fun
I love the
name.
name.
I love the... Yeah. They waited there while it was decided what to do with them. After 7 months, psychiatrist William Spry deemed them to be psychopaths, and they were admitted to the high-security mental health hospital Broadmoor for an indefinite amount of time. This diagnosis was made after only 4 visits, so he only met them 4 times before, sending them to this mental hospital that was supposed to be for adults.
Basically a prison, it sounds like.
Yeah. So during the first 3 visits, the girls didn't speak at all. And in the 4th, they had a violent fight, with each other, not with him. So scratching, clawing at each other,
Shoot.
Like a ridiculous girl fight. So really, he had, without speaking to them at all, had sent them to Broadmoor for an indefinite amount of time, which means, their whole lives, potentially.
They were definitely troubled, but that doesn't sound like enough time.
No, and they were 9 years younger than the youngest person there at the time. So, they were kids.
Yeah.
June attempted suicide within the first 3 weeks, and Jennifer attacked a nurse. So, less than a month there, and they're already acting out. Not that trying to commit suicide is acting out, but you know what I mean? It's not the right place for them, period, is what I'm trying to get at.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
So they ended up being there for a shocking 11 years, which is
a lifetime.
Frigging nuts, considering the crime. You know what I mean? So June was later quoted as saying, quote, "Juvenile delinquents get 2 years in prison. We got nearly 12 years of hell because we wouldn't speak." End quote. So part of the hell that they went through was large doses of antipsychotic medications that left them unable to concentrate. They just drugged them. So this even caused Jennifer to develop a neurological disorder, which caused involuntary repetitive movements.
Jeez.
Yeah. So this case became notorious because of the coverage of journalist Marjorie Wallace of the Sunday Times, and she wrote a book about it called The Silent Twins, which is how I originally heard of the case. It was a good book. Apparently, there's a documentary called The Silent Twins, Without My Shadow. I have no idea. I didn't watch it, so I don't know if it's good. Watch it if you want. I don't know. It's on YouTube. Marjorie started visiting the sisters while they were in prison, before they were assigned to go to Broadmoor. It took time, but they eventually warmed to her enough to start speaking with her. According to Marjorie, they laughed together a lot during tea, but she soon noticed a darkness in each twin. Through June's diary, she learned that June felt possessed by Jennifer, the, quote, dark shadow. That's what she called her sister, her dark shadow. Jennifer's diaries revealed that she felt her sister was the, quote, face of misery, deception, and murder, end quote.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is they can't be without each other, but this is how they really feel about each other. So
awful.
It's like a domestic violence abuse relationship.
Yeah.
Sounds like kind of, yeah.
So to the outside world, they seemed off the charts loyal to each other in that they were so inseparable, but deep inside they were terrified of each other. From Marjorie's point of view, Jennifer was the dominant one. According to her, there were times when it was clear that June wanted to talk, but Jennifer's nonverbal cues prevented her from doing so. Years later, June explained her relationship with her sister as, quote, one day she'd wake up and be me, and one day I would wake up and be her. And we used to say to each other, give me back myself. If you give me back myself, I'll give you back yourself.
Oh, wow.
End quote. So they were just completely intertwined, you know?
Yeah. Wow.
So they had a long-standing agreement that if one of them died, the other needs to start speaking and living a normal life. As their time at Broadmoor passed, they began to feel that the real solution was for one of them to die. After much discussion, Jennifer agreed to sacrifice her life. In March of 1993, after spending a decade at Broadmoor, they were transferred to the minimum security hospital Caswell Clinic in Bridgend, Wales. I'm going to go with that.
Sure.
They packed their belongings from Broadmoor and started the trip to Caswell. When they arrived, the staff was unable to wake Jennifer. She was rushed to the hospital, but soon died of acute myocarditis, which is a sudden inflammation of the heart. She was only 29 years old.
Jeez.
There were no signs of drugs or poison in her system. Her death remains a relative mystery because it was as if she just willed it to happen. You know, that was the deal they made, so she made it happen. The doctors at the Caswell Clinic speculated that the medications from Broadmoor provoked Jennifer's immune system. They also noted that June was given the same medications and was perfectly fine, though, so how can you explain that? There was a full inquest, and June told investigators that Jennifer had been acting differently for a day or so before her death. She had developed a slur in her speech and tried to tell her sister that she was dying. She went on to say that Jennifer spent most of the trip to Caswell asleep on her lap, with her eyes wide open. Which is just the creepy thing. So June stuck to their long-standing agreement and began talking to others as if she'd never stopped, and was soon released from the hospital. She gave a few interviews along the way, but by 2008, she was living quietly near her parents in West Wales. She hoped to get married and have children, but by the time she was released, she felt it was too late because she was already 30. Which apparently is too late.
Jeez.
She visited.
Rude.
Yeah, I know. She visited her sister's grave every Tuesday. The sentiment, according to June, quote, I was born a twin and I'll die a twin, end quote. So that is their story. Yeah. I forget how long ago I read the book like over a decade ago, but I never really forgot about it after reading it. The relationship was just so intense. And yeah, the way that Jennifer just died suddenly like that was so weird.
That is, yeah. I don't know. I don't know anyone personally that's got that intensive in a relationship, so I don't know. I don't think I want to know anyone with that intense of a relationship.
No.
No, that's
it's not
scary.
healthy, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely a seek help situation. So for my story, I'm covering the Parker Hulme murder case. I think that's how you pronounce that one last name, Hulme, Hulme. And I've got a beer pairing for this one. It's from House of Funk Brewing out of North Vancouver, and this is the Fatalist. And it's a ginger and turmeric sour, 4.7% alcohol.
How much?
4.7.
I think it said 47. I was like, why are you starting with that? Do you want to die?
Oh, I didn't start with this. I started with another beer. A milkshake IPA. I don't think Nina would like this one.
No, I don't like drinking coffee.
Oh, it's not coffee.
It looks like it.
It's like a deep brown. You can't really see through it. Sort of a tan head. It's really strong of ginger. When I tried this the first time, I don't really know exactly what turmeric smells like, but there's definitely a spice in there that I'm not familiar with that much, so it's probably the turmeric. And there's a bit of funkiness. That's about all you get on the nose. And it's definitely tart. It's not super sour, but it's got a good tartness. Lots of ginger. Again, that spice, probably the turmeric. Not getting a lot of other notes, really. It's a little bit fruity. But yeah, it's a nice beer. Lots of flavor for under 5%. So let's set the stage. It's summer 1954 in Christchurch, New Zealand. Two girls are on a walk in Victoria Park with one of their mothers. They've been seen by people on the walk, happily moving along. Suddenly, the two girls come running out of the forest yelling, "Please help us. Mummy is hurt, covered in blood." And then they would claim the one girl's mom had fallen and hit her head. Both girls were also covered in blood.
That's terrifying.
So let's hit the rewind button.
Can you imagine just being out for a walk and then two small children covered in blood come running at you?
I'd probably just pass out. Well, this was fun.
Yeah. Fuck this.
Please.
No shit.
Not today, Satan. Not today. And I mean that lovingly. Just not fucking today.
So Pauline Yvonne Parker was born on May 26, 1938 in Christchurch, New Zealand to parents Herbert Reaper and Honora Reaper, known later by her maiden name Parker as they were not married legally. The family was a working class family through and through. At the young age of 5, she would end up going to the hospital for what turned out to be osteomyelitis. I hope I said that right. This is a horrible infection of the bone that infects the bone marrow.
Oh, man.
This would keep her out of physical activities at school and steer her towards writing and art as her passion. Juliette Marion Hulme was born October 28, 1938 in Blackheart, London to an upper-class family. Her parents were Henry and Hilda Hulme. Her father was a well-known and well-respected physicist. Juliette would be diagnosed with tuberculosis as a child, and this would lead her parents to send her to South Africa and the Bahamas to recover in the warmer weather than the UK could offer. Because I guess warmer weather is supposed to be better for recovery? I don't know.
Yeah, at the time they believed that fresh, warm air was a health benefit. That sounds like a brilliant idea to me. Like, if you want to send me if I could get a prescription for a trip to Mexico, that I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
Maybe not right now.
Yeah.
Not right now.
All exclusive, child-free nation.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Then there was a move that happened as Henry Hulme had gotten the rector job at the University of Canterbury in Christchurch. So I had to look up what a rector was, because I've never even heard of that. It is a senior official at an education institution. Sounds like something out of a church, a rector.
Yeah, it does. That's rectory.
Yeah, it is, yeah. At the Christchurch Girls' High School, Pauline Yvonne Parker and Juliette Marion Hulme would meet and become fast friends. They bonded over an odd thing, though, as they bonded over their childhood sicknesses. It's always healthy, right?
I mean, people do go to AA groups and cancer survivor groups, so it doesn't sound that bad. If you have something in common, you can talk about your recovery, or are you saying that they got weird about it?
Oh, they got weird about it.
Okay, because I was like, that's a healthy thing. If you find someone with life experiences, it can definitely help you relate, and you know where I'm getting at.
Yeah. Well, I'll get to the next sentence and you realize it wasn't healthy. They would begin to romanticize about the idea of being sick for some reason that I could never understand, but it made their bond even greater. So yeah, it was not for a good reason.
They're romanticizing?
About the fact of being ill, yeah.
Yeah.
Not a good thing.
No.
With both girls' health not being amazing, they would both retreat together into their heads, eating up written works, as well as writing their own books, plays, and general stories. These ladies seem kind of similar to yours there, Beck.
Yeah. Yep. It's ringing a bell for sure.
Yeah. They would even make it to the point where they would build their own religion that they both followed that would reject Christianity and would center on their own made-up saints and would make up their own dimension called the Fourth World.
Okay, that's how religions start, though, so...
That's how cults start.
Both kind of start the same way.
Yeah.
I would have to assume it would be some kind of place like Narnia there, the Fourth World.
Yeah.
Go through the
now
closet.
that I could get on board with.
Their relationship would build and build until the point of straight-up obsession, and they would be despondent if they did not spend every waking minute together. Many people, including their parents, worried that the two girls were also in a sexual relationship because at that time in New Zealand, not only was this illegal to be gay, but it was also considered a severe mental illness, which is obviously a gross thing, but that's what they thought back then. And a treatment for this mental illness was a prefrontal lobotomy at the time.
No.
So, yeah, you did not want that to be the case. The families thought of splitting the two girls up, but decided against it. So at least they decided to keep them together. Things would start to go bad in 1954. You see, Hilda Hulme would have an affair that broke up the marriage of Juliet Hume's parents. This would lead to issues for Henry Hulme, as he would have to resign from his rector position at the university. The divorce would happen, and the family had intentions to head back to the United Kingdom. It would then be decided that it would be better for Juliet if she was sent to live in South Africa with relatives. So back where it's warm again.
Right.
The two girls could not be separated, though, in their heads. While there's almost no way that Hulme family would let Pauline Parker go to South Africa with Juliet, the two girls thought it was a very likely option. There was just one problem or hurdle. They both knew that Pauline's mother would not let her go with Juliet. This would be where the two girls hatched a plan to fix this little issue.
Yikes.
Yeah. The two girls went for a nice walk at Victoria Park with Honora, Reaver, or Parker. Even if it was a chilly winter day, the trio would stop at a tea kiosk owned by Kenneth and Agnes Ritchie for some snacks and tea or the likes. After the visit to the kiosk, the three would head off to the park area, sort of into a wooded area. Now, they would only make it about 130 meters or 426 feet where the attack would begin. So this is back where I started the whole story. The two girls would run back towards the tea kiosk, covered in blood, yelling, quote, "Please help us. Mommy is hurt, covered in blood." Agnes Ritchie would take the two distraught girls into the kiosk and try to comfort them. Kenneth would run up the path to help the mother, as he assumed she had just taken a bad fall. When he arrived, though, it would be very obvious that she had not just had a trip and a fall. She had been beaten with half a brick that had been stuffed inside a stocking. They beat her so badly that her face had 24 wounds on it, and she was already dead. By the end of the beating, she was not even bleeding very much anymore, as she had basically already bled out.
Jesus.
Wow.
Yeah. Agnes Ritchie, one of the people that owned the food kiosk, would call her husband to find out what had happened to the mother, as she sent the girls to the washroom to clean up all the blood. It was on their hands and faces as much as they could from their clothing as well, just trying to clean up a little bit because, like I said, they were covered in blood. Weirdly, she would hear the two girls laughing like mad in the washroom as they were cleaning up.
That's so terrifying.
Yes.
And that's definitely not expected behavior from two kids who just saw, one of their moms get murdered.
Yeah. Or fall down.
Oh, yeah.
Fall. Fall with a brick.
Yeah. They were definitely not masterminds, and the police and ambulance were called right away. When the police arrived and saw the scene, they arrested both girls on the spot. While I said there was 24 wounds on her face, she was found to have 45 total wounds from the beating when her body was brought to the hospital. It's 45 impacts from a brick.
I don't know if you're going to get to it, and I'm sorry if you are, but it's like for that many impact, it's like they were taking turns. You know what I mean? Because your arm would get tired. Your arm would get tired.
Yeah, they would, yeah.
A brick is heavy. Like, And to swing it in a sock?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The trial would be a bit of a gong show with claims that the girls were lesbians and as such had serious mental health issues. On August 28th, 1954, the two girls would be convicted of murder and would get 5 years each in prison as minors. The lawyers were originally pushing for the death penalty, but the girls were just too young.
Wow.
Pauline Parker would leave prison and get a new identity so she could try and start a new life. The name was Hilary Nathan. She kept her nose clean, and after years of surveillance by the authorities in New Zealand, she would be granted the ability to move back to England. It's a bit scary also that in 1997 she would open up a school for children to ride horses. Not the role model you'd want around your kids, I wouldn't think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Their kids would be in danger.
Yeah.
The people in danger are the parents.
True.
Kids are fine. They didn't harm kids. They just don't like your fucking ass.
No
There's
shit.
a big difference.
They better pay on time.
Yeah, no shit.
Get a beating with a brick if you don't like.
Yeah. Just sitting there swinging the brick.
But Beck's
Hey,
right. That sounds fucking exhausting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She would find religion other than their fake religion later in life and also live as a bit of a recluse other than the riding school, and she never really spoke to the press or anyone after that other than her sister. Juliet Hulme, on the other hand, would move around a bit, including a stint in England and then the United States, before deciding she would set up roots back in England. Once there, she would change her name to Anne Perry and become a well-known historical detective novelist.
As one does.
Yeah. Much like Juliet, she would find religion in Mormonism this time. She held her secret of who she was all the way up until 1994. At that point, she became more public about who she was. I think she was kind of outed and then just started talking about it. Move forward to March 2006, Juliet, or should I say Anne, would state that while the two girls had been obsessed with each other, they had never been lesbians. So it wasn't that, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It was such a big friggin' thing back then. The two women claim that they never spoke since their time in jail. Maybe these two were rehabilitated once they separated, but this is such a sad tale. Murdering a mother just so that you can, quote unquote, move to South Africa together. Like, it's never going to happen. Well, yeah, that's my case.
Craziness.
Wow. So young, too.
I know. So sad.
It would have been an extremely different case if that had taken place in the States, eh?
Yeah,
Could be.
I bet you they would have not been trialed like kids.
Yeah, I don't know. They might have been. They might not have been. They probably still wouldn't have only gotten 5 years.
Right. Yeah, I don't believe they would have only gotten 5 years.
I don't think they would here either, though.
I don't know. It sounds like a premeditated murder, which is a little bit different to me.
Oh, yeah. It was definitely
And also
premeditated.
the laughing and all of that. Like, I don't think any of that's really the best.
Wow.
Alrighty. Well, I guess we'll get ready for the next one.
Okay. So let's get going. So obviously, my story today includes a set of twins. Before I get talking into the story, I'm going to talk about my pairing. I'm almost positive I'm going to hate this beer, but I think it makes sense with my story.
No.
So without giving too much away of the story, which I think Beck is already kind of familiar with the story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really, really good one.
I recognize the brewery from the bottle cap. Is that wrong?
What's the...
Foamer's Folie.
Yep, you're right. So the reason I picked this beer, because, well, so without giving too much away, both of my girls get hit by a car, and I would assume that they see lots of X and O's because they get knocked out. So bear with me here. So this is why I picked this. Nothing to do with the name or anything, just kind of the bottle. I thought was a little ridiculous. So as Mike had said, yes, it's the Foamer's Folie Brewing Company, brewed locally here in Pitt Meadows. It is a blackberry limoncello sour ale.
Oh, that sounds
my
really
God,
good.
that sounds amazing.
This, so I'm going to read what it says on the bottle. This collaboration between Foamer's Folie Brewing and Giuseppe Fine Spirits was created as a celebration of all things sour. The addition of Giuseppe's award-winning limoncello perfectly complements the sour blackberry ale to build a bright and delicious tart beer. Fresh, juicy, sour, citrus. It has wheat, two-row, oats, lemon drop, rambling cross, lactobacillus. Anyways, it's got other words I can't say. It's quote-unquote a strong beer. It's 6.5% alcohol, and it's a 650 milliliter bottle. It smells like beer. It's not that dark. It's actually a really pretty color. It's actually not that bad. I don't know that I completely hate it. I mean, it's definitely not like a beer I would actively order because it is really rather sour. But I think I could drink it, and it's reasonably priced too. I think it was like $9 or something, obviously pre-tax, whatever. But yeah, I definitely would recommend to you guys to try it out because I know, Beck, you especially really like your sours. So
I sure do.
I'm hit and miss with sours, but that flavor profile sounds good.
Yeah.
I mean, I love lemon flavor or anything. So yeah. Okay, so let's get into my story. It is a little bit of a longer one, so whatever.
Buckle up.
I guess, yeah. So for this episode, I'm going to be talking about the twins of Ursula and Sabina Eriksson. Of course, before getting into the events that both of the twins are most known for, I wanted to give a little bit of background on them. Sabina and her identical twin sister, Ursula, they were born on November 3rd in 1967 in Sweden. They have two older siblings as well. So there's the family of four kids, I guess. And honestly, I was hoping to give you more on their history. There's nothing exciting there. They were just average, for all intents and purposes, average family, average upbringing, nothing crazy. No apparent history of like any previous criminal convictions, no history of mental health issues, nothing. And not just even for them, but also like for like their family members, immediate family. Honestly, just looks like the events that I'm going to talk about were just a one-off weird clusterfuck of things that happened. Yeah, essentially just super average people, you know, quote unquote law-abiding citizens, like nothing there. Ursula did end up moving to the United States in 2000, while Sabina actually stayed living in Ireland with her partner and two kids. So normal, healthy relationship between the twins as well. You know, I know Beck's case where the twins were essentially tied at the hip and had a lot of that. These guys just, I mean, I don't want to say they were normal twins, but they didn't have that kind of codependency growing up as like the other case that Beck talked about.
Right.
So now let's just jump forward to May 16th in 2008. Ursula left the United States to go visit her sister in Ireland, and that's it. I don't know, went to go visit her sister. Nothing too exciting about that. No ulterior motives or anything like that. From here, the sisters ended up deciding that they should travel to Liverpool in England, and it was a little confusing to the family, to Sabina's family, her husband, kids. Why were they just going to England? You know, Ursula just came all the way over here from the States to visit. So a little bit bizarre, but didn't really assume anything weird. Just maybe two sisters wanting to catch up after a long time. So let's get on a trip together.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
It seems just, you know, not exciting, I suppose, just whatever. So let's kind of get into it. They ended up traveling by ferry, and they arrived pretty early morning on Saturday, May 17th. Their first step was actually a police station. So this is where it gets a little bit interesting, because of all places on their travels, why do they go there? So turns out that they went there because Sabina wanted to speak to the police about some concerns she had for her kids' safety. She was implying that her partner was abusive, and she mentioned that they had a fight the previous night and was a little bit scared to leave her kids with him and didn't know what to do, and her sister actually flew here to help her, blah, blah, blah. That's the story that they're going with.
Right.
I tried to look into it a little bit to see if there was like maybe history of abuse or mention of, not even necessarily history of abuse, but mention of abuse in Sabina's relationship with her partner, kids and all that. I couldn't find anything. It looks like just what she literally said to the police. Other than that, nothing really stands out that there's any like reports from like the kids' teachers or like the kids say nothing.
Right, nothing to corroborate that.
Not to corroborate, no. I mean, nothing also to say that I couldn't find a reason of why she would just make that up, but
right.
People have their own reasons for doing things that they do.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So from here, a few strange events happened. Some of them happened when the twins were together, and some happened while they're not together, which I'll kind of explain a little bit later. So the first kind of strange behavior was exhibited on a bus. The two sisters got on a bus. This is after leaving the police station. They ended up not feeling well on the bus. They asked the bus driver to pull over so they can, kind of get out, stretch their legs, get some fresh air, whatever. The driver did let that. Of course, he pulled over, let them off the bus. And according to the bus driver, they were kind of just being weird, kind of like whispering to themselves, like clutching their like luggage. I guess they just had like traveler's bags. And I found it really odd. So before boarding the bus again, the bus driver actually asked if they can search their bags, which legally speaking, the bus driver can.
Mm-hmm.
They refused. Bus drivers were worried, did they have, what was in the bags? Why were they being so weird? Is it weapons? Is it drugs? I don't know. So the twins did not let him search their stuff. And essentially, you didn't let them get back on the bus. So they were left at the kind of like, it was just off. They explained that it's a bus station, but it's not the actual bus station where you go to like buy your tickets, by like a bus loop, I guess.
Oh, like a little shelter.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they were left there at the kind of like service station. And actually a clerk at the service station thought that they were being weird too, to the point where they just called the police.
That's weird.
The police came, checked all of their stuff. They didn't have any like drugs, weapons, nothing on them. And basically the police just said, they're fine. Maybe they're just being weird because they're traveling, but kind of nothing to be concerned with anyways. So they left and whatever, kind of clean their hands off of it, or clean their hands out of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So from here, on the same day, the two were later seen leaving the service station, ended up walking up the M6. So the M6 is just the main highway that's runs in the UK. It was middle of the day. There's lots of traffic. And obviously we're all familiar that they have a lot of the CCTV cameras everywhere. So you just see them walking onto the highway. And it's not like a friendly looking highway. There's just a crap ton of cars. There's no place for like passengers or pedestrians. I shouldn't say passengers, for pedestrians to walk. So that's weird. So it looks like while walking, they were kind of going in and out of traffic. And Sabina ended up lightly getting hit by a car.
Ouch.
And of course, from here, someone who was driving called the police. And the police came to the scene. Now, it just so happens that the current police, they were called motorway cops, were actually being followed by a local television crew because they were filming a segment for their Motorway Cops series. So It's a third episode. So this part is, there's a video on it. You can YouTube it. You can look it up wherever. It is freaking weird. Yeah, I'm just going to get into what you could see on the video.
It's unbelievable.
Oh, it makes no sense. Like, I've seen the video prior to us picking like this topic and doing the case, but I don't even know. I honestly, first time I watched it, I just thought that these two girls must have been high on drugs. They were just talking. They weren't clear. They looked like they're like out to lunch, yelling, trying to get away from the police officers. Originally, they weren't like trying to harm the cops or anything. They were just trying to get away from the cops.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't quite make sense why, because the cops are more just like, why are you on the highway? Like, let's just get you to like the sidewalk. Like, it didn't seem anything like intrusive or invasive by the police or anything like that. Ursula ended up breaking free from the police officers and got hit by a car like she got hit by a car. She actually ended up breaking both of her legs.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. She couldn't move. Little like unconscious, like she was fucked up, essentially. There's no way nice to put it.
Yeah.
Of course, on this video you can see, I think there's a ambulance that comes. Obviously she gets put on the ambulance. While all of this is going on, Sabina is freaking out. Her sister's freaking out. She ends up breaking free from the police. Also runs into the road, like onto the freeway. Also gets hit by a car. Gets knocked unconscious. So not nearly as injured as Ursula got. From here, she was once again now being treated by the paramedics, like on literally the side of the road. By this point, they'd also stopped traffic because like something not right was going on here. And Sabina was yelling, and to quote one of the things that she was caught yelling is that I recognize you. I know you're not real. You're going to steal our organs. Like,
Wow.
Yeah, like what the hell are you talking about?
No shit.
So from here, she actually ended up breaking free from the police again and ran into traffic again.
Fuck.
At this point, she didn't get hit by a car again. Police caught up to her. They handcuffed her, and at this point, she was sedated. Because clearly something, like I don't know if it was a psychotic break or what the heck.
Yeah, she needed to be sedated, I think, temporarily.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of seeing people get sedated and in all of these, I don't know, right? Like, just because someone's acting hysterical doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be sedated and like, quote unquote, be told to calm down.
No, for sure.
This was just it was just bizarre.
If she breaks away again and runs out in the street, she could die.
Oh, well.
And kill someone else.
Well, I can see, like, obviously you see your other twin or your other sibling get smoked by a car, like broken, like injured. Whatever, injured. I don't know. It was just bizarre. Now, the story doesn't end here. This is stuff that I didn't realize happened. I thought the end of the story was just like this video happened. They went to the hospital and like, everything went hunky-dory afterwards. That's not what happened at all. So Ursula actually ended up having to be picked up and flown to a hospital to undergo treatment. Like she had to have surgery.
Yeah, an ambulance.
Yeah, no, her story ends here. She didn't die or anything, but she was hospitalized and like couldn't move. So that's one thing. Sabina, on the other hand, was put in police custody. She ended up being actually really calm, which a lot of people were surprised that she was calm given her previous erratic behavior, like literally not even 24 hours ago. She ended up pleading guilty to charges of trespassing onto the motorway and for actually hitting one of the police officers during the second time she broke free. For whatever reason, she was sentenced to 1 day in custody. And she was not asked to go through psychiatric evaluation and actually was just released from the police the following day.
That's bizarre to me.
Oh, it is so weird.
That's so bizarre.
And just to add to like the eeriness of everything, while she was there, there's a report of what she said to a police officer, or like the police officer who was in her like custody area, whatever. She says, and I quote, that an accident rarely comes alone. Usually at least one or more follows, maybe two. I don't know why they didn't go for psychiatric evaluation. They ended up like checking their urine and all of that. No booze, no drugs.
Weird.
In their system. So that
Well,
kind of
especially
takes...
when she was concerned that her organs were going to be stolen. Like,
it's not normal.
if it's not booze or drugs, it has to be something that isn't just a flippant remark. Like,
it is weird.
Yeah.
From here on, I'm not going to talk necessarily too much about Ursula because she's kind of out of the picture at this point. So from here, Sabina did get taken to a hospital to get checked out after she was released, whatever, and she's fine. and essentially she was left up to her own devices. She was walking around in the local town, and she came across two men, Glenn Hollenshade, and he was with his friend Peter Molloy. Sabina started talking to them and didn't obviously tell them what just happened, but mentioned that she's here because she needs to find her sister who's in the hospital. So these guys, from all I see, are really nice guys.
Mm-hmm.
This girl's obviously new to town. She's just trying to find where the local hospital is, trying to locate like what clinic her sister could possibly be at. In addition, Sabina was asking them if they had any recommendations to like a local bed and breakfast where she can go kind of stay the night while she's continuing her search for her daughter. Glenn ended up feeling pretty bad for her. She seemed obviously really disoriented, confused, and offered that she could stay at his house. He has family members who are paramedics, so he's like, you know what, I can get you in contact with someone, let me call around, let's find where your sister is, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So really nice guys. Obviously, she said yes. She went to the house, to Glenn's house, and Peter went there as well. Reports after, Peter was saying that, you know, she seemed really nice, a little bit weird, where she'd like offer them a cigarette and then take the cigarette back, pretending that she poisoned it. And they thought that was kind of weird, but they also chalked it up to like, she obviously went through something traumatic with her sister. Like, maybe she's just weird. Which I don't know. I don't know if A, I'd invite a stranger who I just saw walking on the street. B, as a single female walking in a foreign place, walking up to two men and being like, hey, where should I stay? And if one of the men offered like, come to my house, I'd probably say no.
Yeah.
But whatever. She went. And the story still doesn't end here. So the three of them ended up staying at Glenn's house. Just having a couple drinks, like had dinner together. No like partying, nothing like that. Peter left, and of course Sabina ended up staying the night at Glenn's house. The following morning, Glenn phoned his brother and actually spent most of the day calling around clinics, hospitals, trying to find where her sister was. Glenn ended up actually walking to his neighbor's house to get some tea bags, which you got to have your afternoon tea. I thought that was adorable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, these days you don't really hear the going to your neighbor for a cup of sugar or anything like that. So
Yeah. But that's like the next closest thing.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, and I thought it was really sweet. So he then returns to his house, and a few minutes later, he ends up walking out of his house. It was very obvious that he had been stabbed multiple times. The neighbor saw him and obviously was in shock. The last thing that Glenn said was, "She stabbed me."
Jeez.
And he collapsed, and he quickly died from his injuries.
Wow.
From
Holy
here,
crap.
Oh, it's insane. It gives me the goose pimples thinking about it. Like, he's just a nice guy trying to help you, spending his day calling around, trying to find your all good intentions, and then he gets fucking stabbed and dies. He gets murdered. Of course, the neighbor who saw him fall calls the police right away, and Sabina ended up running out of the house. As I mentioned before, they have a lot of CCTV cameras. So, of course, they catch her on the camera. She still had the hammer in her hand that she, I guess, brought for protection. She didn't use the hammer to stab him. She used a knife in the house that she found in the household. But she brought a hammer while she was running away, which is also bizarre. And while she was kind of running away, she started walking in one part, which is seen on the CCTV footage. And she ended up taking the hammer and trying to hit herself in the head. And someone who was driving by, a motorist on a motorcycle, pulled over and was just oh my God, trying to take the hammer out of her hands to help her.
Oh my God.
From somewhere, she pulls out a roof tile that she had in her bag, because she stole that from Glenn's house, a fucking roof tile, and actually hits this guy who's trying to help her in the head and hurts him a little bit, knocks him out. No long-term damage, but knocked him out, and all he did was literally pull over to help her stop hitting herself.
Right.
Yeah. So from here, police are coming, paramedics come, and not that Sabina learned her lesson from a couple days ago about getting hit by a car. She once again runs into traffic. However, this time dodges the vehicles, but jumps off of the side of like a little bridge thing that wasn't that little. It was a 12-meter drop, and ended up breaking both of her ankles and fractured her skull.
Jeez.
Yeah. So she was then taken to hospital. It's just like so bizarre. This is all within like, what's 72 plus 12, like 84 hours, like 3 days. Like, it's just fucking bizarre. From here, obviously we have a trial that comes up. Ursula was released with no charges. Obviously she had nothing. She wasn't involved in murder or anything. She couldn't walk. Like, she couldn't leave the hospital. She was fucked up. She's not going anywhere. And Sabina had a lot of back and forth, actually, in her case, which I found a little surprising. Some of the back and forth came of where she should be in custody and where she should be trialed, because technically she's Swedish, but she's living in Ireland, but this happened in the UK. So it's kind of like a little bit of a mess of like, who's going to deal with, like, no one wanted to do anything with her.
Wow.
Eventually, it actually went to the States for trial, which I don't understand how that happened.
That's very bizarre. Usually it's the jurisdiction that it happened in.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think maybe it would have been transferred because Ursula was from the States, because Sabina wasn't from the States either. I don't fucking know. All a bunch of a weird custody thing. Anyways, she finally went to trial February in 2009. There was some issues, I guess, obtaining some documents from Sweden, but eventually the trial finally started in September of 2009. Sabina, of course, ended up pleading guilty to manslaughter with diminished responsibility. She was interrogated, and she was one of those people who's interrogated who actually replied no comment to every single question she was asked.
Pleading the fifth.
Yeah, just no comment, no comment. From all reports here, it sounded like she was completely normal, like she was sane during the sentencing, during the trial period. The defense and prosecution both came to an agreement that she was insane at the time of the killing. And they claim that she was influenced by the presence or perceived presence of her twin sister, quote, in her opinion, the primary suspect. So she thought it was her sister in her head doing this through her. Which makes us, well, obviously this is a whole psychiatric delusion.
Well, that's similar to what I was saying in my case about how it felt like they switched bodies. They'd wake up and sometimes her sister was in control. And yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously she did get some psychiatric evaluations done as part of the trial. And in addition to this, she also had an acute delusional disorder. So she ended up only being sentenced to 5 years in prison, which she was sentenced to serve in England. She ended up being released in 2011, and her current whereabouts are unknown.
Wow.
Yeah, I honestly thought the whole thing on the highway was kind of the end of the story, because that in itself was just, I mean, you guys have to watch it. Like, Mike, I'll send you a link to it to post it.
I think I've actually seen it originally when it first happened, but I hadn't heard the rest of the story at all.
Well, yeah, I had no idea about the killing and the stuff that happened to Glenn, the like further crimes that Sabina had committed. But it just made it very, very bizarre. Also, big shout out to Beck for suggesting this topic. It was quite interesting going through all of this, and I think it's sometimes, I don't know, very easy to just label that someone's just insane, and you just have your perception of what you think is insane. But this is a very interesting take on the insanity plea, especially when there's that twin. But the other thing too that I found weird is while they were both experiencing the delusion together, like what if Ursula didn't end up getting hit by the car that bad and she was also released? Would the events that happened with Sabina afterwards have also happened? Would something worse? Could something worse have happened? I don't know.
Don't know, yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very, very bizarre, but I liked it. So yeah. Anyways, that's my story.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you guys liked this one. I hope the listeners enjoy it.
I'm sure they will. All right, well, thanks for tuning in. If you want to find us on the internet, you can go to brewcrime.com. If you want to find us on social media, go to @brewcrime. If you want to support us, you can go to patreon.com/brewcrime. We use the money to upgrade our equipment and to make the show better. And for that, you get one bonus episode a month, and you get early access, commercial-free to our episodes. So shout out to our Patreon supporters, True Crime Nana, Daniela, Ange, Nina's mom, 3 Biz In podcast, Amber, and the Faves of Our Lives podcast. You can go to our store and pick up shirts, stickers, whatever you want. If you want to support us, you can go to tpublic.com/stores/brew-crime-podcast. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Brew Crime's intro was created by Mike using Creative Commons Attribution licensed audio from purple-planet.com, soundbible.com, and freesoundeffects.com. Logo design was by Ben Greenberg. All cases and stories were written by Beck, Nina, and Mike, and our sources are put into the show notes for each episode. We always want to give credit to the people that research the cases we talk about. We can also be found on your favorite podcast apps, our hosts, Spreaker.com, or BrewCrime.com, as well as at BrewCrime on Twitter, at BrewCrime on Facebook, at Facebook.com/groups/BrewCrime. Thanks for listening. This has been a production of Pacific Beer Chat.
Victimology, the study of the victims of crime and the psychological effects on them. Join me, Melissa Lee, a criminal justice student, as we discuss various true crime content and victim stories, oftentimes with their loved ones and advocates.
My cousin, Christina Nelson, was a victim of the Lewis Clark Valley serial killer. In my opinion, and this is my opinion, this is probably his first victim. So we're looking at 54 years of him being active.
I can almost 100% assure you that law enforcement would have put it out there already. If they knew who it was and they were able to share it with public, they would tell us.
There was a story on the news about a woman, they had found her body and it fit her description.
That doesn't ring true to me, but what I do think here in this specific case, again, it goes back to the conversation you and I had earlier.
It's the minute I walk outside of the prison doors where it kind of all hits me. It really just, what the hell did I just hear? What happened? It kind of all, sinks in finally.
Victimology is available on all podcast platforms.
Pepsi Cola Addict was about a high school student who is seduced by a teacher and then sent to a reformatory. Nope.
Was sent to a nope.
I can hear my voice getting worse and worse. We took that time off from recording. I feel like I haven't talked to anyone in 2 months.
Austria. Oh, sorry, this is a fun one. Hey, Nina, what about you tried this one?
Mm-hmm.
OSTEOMYELITIS.
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 Oh, there you go.
There you go.
So I would also, or I can speak. Blah. I would have to assume blah, 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 blah. Prefrontal. Shoot, sorry, beer's burpy. The two girls would run back towards the tea kiosk. Kiosk.
You can do it, Mike.
I can say kiosk.
Kiosk.
Can you?
No.
I mean, you didn't say the episode's title because you're not good at pronouncing stuff, so I don't know.
It looks like Nina froze. Hello,
Yeah.
Nina. Nina. Hello. Oh, fuck.
It looks like she's really intently into the color of the beer.
Well, you guys also were frozen, looking really awkward, and I was like, one of us is dead. One of us is dead.
We've been chatting.
Okay, so
So tell us
I
about
guess
your
I go
beer.
back-